Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. And if you're on YouTube, head on over to behance.net/Adobe Live so you can chat along with us. We've got Juhi and Faisal and Aaron and Richard, Joshua, Sarah, and Sam and Kerwin. Great to see all of you, familiar faces, new faces. Definitely throw your name in the chat. So, today is day number 7 of this round of challenges. Head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD and you'll get all the information about these challenges. If you're new, go ahead and hit that big blue button at the top so you're notified when new challenges are released. Every single day, you're going to receive a challenge, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday. We've been at this for about a week and a half now, and we're going to be wrapping things up on Friday, but a new host and new challenges are coming next week. It's going to be really excited. Ankur is saying, I need my coffee. Me too, but I'm on a coffee break for 3 days for testing purposes. And I'm going to be very sad and possibly cranky tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. You can also join us on our community chat over on Discord. We have about 50,000 members on Discord. There's almost 1,600 online right now. Many of you are posting your work in the current challenge channel. Great stuff in there. Some of it is incredibly creative. All of it's creative, right? You can get information about XD, you can talk about design or whatever it might be. I did just post a video on YouTube, and I linked it in the pro tips section, all about creating content cards using XD. It's one of my bite-sized tips. So after this stream, if you have nothing else to do, go ahead and check that out. And you can also watch us live. I'm here 2 Pacific every single day during these challenges. Next week, someone new, but we're running content pretty much all day, every day, which is fantastic. Behance.net/live. You can watch all the things. And finally, you can share your work. Behance, using the keyword XD Daily Challenge, or you can share it on Discord like I just showed. Peter saying, really love the huge community. Me too, and all of you are so nice and friendly in Discord. So, to catch us all up, last week we started with the web experience of this particular service, and we tackled a landing page, a live support chat widget using components and states, feature overview, which we used stacks for, sign in and sign up experience. That was a lot of fun. And then the home screen of our mobile app we tackled on Monday. We looked at scrollable charts using scroll groups yesterday. And today we're going to look at a payment experience. And we're going to be using Auto-Animate, we're going to be using masks. And as these challenges progress, they get a little bit more challenging, right? So you're going to have a lot of fun. And I know Aaron in the chat was really looking forward to learning about Auto-Animate, and we're definitely going to be doing that using states and components. All right, so let me go ahead and hop over to Adobe XD, boop, and here is the template for today. Again, we are going to be designing out and prototyping the payment interaction within this mobile application. We've got some inspiration down here if you want to get really creative with drag triggers and preset payment amounts and things like that. Definitely, if you feel comfortable, go crazy, get creative, and have fun with it. All right, so here's where we left off yesterday. And to catch you up on this particular aspect of this challenge, here's the home screen of this app. And maybe we'll get into additional screens tomorrow, but we have these cards at the top. And we've got this container over here. And we've got this navigation bar down at the bottom, which we're going to be utilizing today. And then we have this scrollable chart, which we created yesterday. So if I go ahead and launch this preview, I can scroll over to the left and see additional information. I can tap on these particular dots, just like that. And there we go. We can hide them and show them. Richard saying, any QR code payment animation? Probably not today. That sounds very complex, but Richard, I'm going to put you up to that task. Joshua was asking, I have a question. What's the most important part of the process of creating an interface? That is a big question. I would suggest bring that question on Friday during my masterclass when I have a little bit more time to answer it. Also think about it a little bit, but bring it over there or ask in Discord. There's a great community of designers over there. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tackling the payment experience of this particular application, and we're going to be using component states. This is going to be a lot of fun, and also Auto-Animate. So, we've got this area down here with the navigation bar, right? And of course, we could go ahead and transition to another artboard. We could do that, right? But we want to get a little bit fancy with this. We're going to get creative. We want to stay on one single artboard, and we want to make sure that if you are using this application and you want to make a payment, you can do it basically from anywhere. That's probably the most important part of this particular application. So we've got this nice big button at the bottom, and this is going to initiate the payment. Faisal is asking, where's the masterclass? So every Friday on Behance, right here where you are right now, 12 o'clock Pacific time, so noon, I have a masterclass every single week. So come back here, behance.net/Adobe Live, and I will be here. All right, so we've got this going on, right? Now, what we want to make sure to do is turn this into a component. Right now, it's not a component. And the benefit of using components, there are many things. One, you can keep all of your navigation bars up to date. So if you have multiple artboards with the same navigation bar, you just have to make changes to one, and it makes changes to all of them. The other benefit is you can create micro interactions using states. So with the navigation bar selected, you also want to make sure that the navigation bar is at the top of your layer stack right here to the left, and you'll see why that's so important in a moment. Hey Valdair, welcome. So I have my navigation bar selected. I'm going to press the plus button over here to the right to create a new component. Boop. And we have our default state. Now what we want to do is we want to create an additional state. However, we may not want to do that just yet. We may want to start adding in some elements that we're going to be using on that second state, because we are going to be using Auto-Animate. So those elements need to be present on both states in order for XD to animate them correctly. So what we want a few additional information. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to move this up. And look at that, isn't that fancy? Because Auto-Animate is active, sorry, not Auto-Animate, because we have padding and stacking enabled, I can just move this up and it just gives me some space. So what I wanna do, and what we're eventually gonna be doing, I'm gonna take a look over here in my properties inspector. It's 75 by 75. Keep that in mind. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna drag this out, and because I used a rectangle in day number 1 of this week, we can very easily just extend this like that and like that. Look at that, right? Fancy. Now inside of this particular box, we may want some additional information. We may want the ability to swap between receiving and paying, right? So I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm going to type out the word receive. Now, of course, I can't see anything right now because the text was set to white. Probably don't want that. So I'm going to press the I key on my keyboard to grab the eyedropper and just click on this purple color. Of course, you can also do that inside of your assets panel if you have that color saved. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the Babus font that we've been using. There it is. Helps if I can spell it correctly. And maybe let's go for maybe semi-expanded, extra bold. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty nice, right? There we go. I'm going to put that right about, it's a bit large, maybe a little bit smaller. We can even try out the just expanded extra bold. Yeah, that looks a bit better. All right, so we've got receive, and then we can also drag this over to the right, and this will be to switch over to payments, right? And just to let people know that, they're on the receiving section right now, we can just drop the opacity a little bit, just so that this is the inactive state, probably about 50%. What we can also do is create a line, just so we really tell users that you are on the receiving section, at least for now. So I can drag one out, make it a lot bigger. That's a bit too big. Just like that, choose my purple, and there we go, right? Perfect. That looks pretty good. All right, now we can use this icon that's inside of this section, and I can just grab this icon and move it on up here. I can even make it a bit smaller if I wanted to, just like that. And I can grab all this information and just make sure it is centered. Perfect. All right, now down below here, we may want to specify how much you're going to be receiving, or if you switch over, how much you're going to be paying. So I'm going to duplicate this text layer, and let's say we're if we're sticking with the whole Bitcoin cryptocurrency thing, of course, you can do whatever you want, US dollars, yen, whatever. 0.1, and let's say we're also going to do BTC, right? We're going to put this in the center. Maybe we'll make this a little bit larger, just like that. Perfect. And we might want some secondary information. And Sarah's asking, how do you design without a mouse? I'm currently using a trackpad right now. I don't know. I just been used to it. I kind of like the trackpad. And this will just say amount. And I can make this nice and small. I might drop the weight a little bit. Let's go for, I don't know, regular possibly. And maybe I'll just drop the opacity as well. Left justify it. All right. That's looking pretty good. Now, to let users know that maybe they can change the amount that they're going to be receiving, we may want to utilize another line. So just pop one down here, right underneath 0.01, just like that. May want to make it a little bit thinner, and maybe just drop the opacity a little bit. There we go. All right. Now, the last big thing that we're going to need is a button to actually either request money or send money, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my rectangle and just draw one out. I'm going to make sure to snap everything. I might want to change the size a little bit later on, but we're going to see how this looks. I'm going to round out the corners completely. Let's go for this purple again. Move it down a touch. And in the center, we're going to type out request. And this one we definitely want to make nice and bold because this will be a call to action. There we go. Perfect. Make it a little bit larger and position it. Now things are looking a little bit squishy right now, and we probably don't want that. We don't want things to be all claustrophobic. So we can make this a little bit larger, or we can make some of these elements a little bit smaller, right? You can make this a little bit smaller just like that, and just kind of move things around until things don't look as squishy, right? And half of design is just finessing things into place like that. And I'm also going to group some of these elements, and this will be a mount, for example. And we're going to definitely get to Auto-Animate in just a moment, but we do have to set things up, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? There we go. So we've got this great looking section. Now, of course, on the initial state, which we're in right now, we don't want all of this stuff to be displayed, right? We kind of want it off of the artboard. We want it masked away. So what I'm going to do is I have this rectangle in the background that I'm using, and I want to use that as a mask. So I'm going to copy this rectangle and paste it on top. Now, obviously it covered everything up right now, but we want to use that as for the mask. So I have this rectangle selected. I'm going to make sure that's selected at the top of the layer stack. I'm going to hold down my shift key and click on everything underneath it. So all of it is selected. With that done, we're going to go up to the object menu and then mask with shape right here. Boop. And it's going to essentially mask everything away. And I can go ahead and make this a little bit larger if I wanted to, but we're going to get to that in the second state. So now that that's done, we want to move everything out of the way. Right? And you remember we remembered that 75 pixel amount earlier, right? And that was for this particular rectangle. So I'm going to go back here, 75 and 75. So now that we have this nice little circle, we can pop it back into place. We also want to make sure to do the exact same thing with our mask, 75 and 75. Now, of course, you can do this beforehand, you can do this after. I just find it's a little bit easier to do it like this. All right, and we can grab this icon. And now what we can do is we can start moving things out of the way. So this button, for example, right? I can just move it below. And because it's outside of the mask, it's not going to be visible. And I can grab, let's say, receive and pay. Let's move this down here. But we might want, let's say, the receive text layer. We might want it over here, right? And maybe the line, I'm going to move even further away. So as it kind of comes into play, everything kind of moves in at different speeds, right? And we've got the pay text layer. I'm going to move it out here. We might want these guys. Oh, whoops. Where did it go? There we go. We want to do the same thing for this. We're going to maybe move this over here, maybe a little bit further actually. And again, this will kind of give the impression that things are moving at different speeds. We're gonna move this over here, move the line, and there we go. So if I click off of it, it looks basically just like it did at the very beginning, right? However, everything is masked inside of this particular payment section, right? And this mask that we created. I'm gonna go ahead and just name this payment. There we go, all right? So the big question is, what do we do now? And maybe I also want a little bit of a shadow. And Nina is asking, will all these changes be saved to the default state? So that's one thing I want to stress, is that I made all of this inside of the default state, so that when I do create a new state, all of these elements will be available to me to kind of move back into place. And what I could have done is, just to make my life a little bit easier, when I was at the point of this right about here, I could have copied this, right? That way, when I create a new state, I can just paste all these elements into place. But I'm going to show you the process of moving everything manually, just in case you do go that route. So let me go back, and there we go. So yeah, I might want a little bit of a shadow on this particular rectangle down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow down here. Let's go for a darker color, maybe a little bit of purple in there. I want it to, whoops, go down that way, and just add a little bit of a blur and a very subtle shadow, something like that. Now watch what happens if I click away. That shadow kind of disappears, and that's because the mask is, well, masking it out. So in this case, I can just make this mask a little bit larger because there are no elements around it that, I just moved all the elements away. So there we go. Now it's a little bit too harsh. So let's go ahead and tweak that shadow. If you know me, you know I'm very particular about my shadows. Drag it down just a tiny little bit. There we go. All right, now of course, we do have padding turned on, so it did kind of move that away. So what I'm able to do is, I've got my mask and I've got this shape. I can just kind of finesse things into place like that. There we go. Perfect. All right, looking pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to create the second state for this particular navigation. So I'm going to go ahead and press the plus button over to the right within the Properties Inspector and create a new state. We are working with mobile, so hover doesn't really apply. And everyone's congratulating Richard. Let me go check what happened to Richard. Let's see, hold on. Where is Richard? What happened? I don't see the chat, hold on. Someone fill me in, what's going on? I don't know, but someone fill me in. All right, so now that the second state has been created, all we need to do is make changes. So what we're gonna do exactly what we did before, right? We're gonna dive in here. We're gonna move this up just like this. We wanna make sure that it's covering most of this information up here. We double click into the mask, stretch this out. We can even show our guides. Pull this out a little bit, right? Maybe pull this down. And then we're gonna start just tweaking things. So whoop, just like that. Stretch this down. There we go. So now we have a nice amount of space for our payment area. We want to make sure that the mask's border radius matches. So we're just going to pull that out just like that. Get a little bit of room for the shadow down there. And then we can start moving things around. So we can move our button in here. And I do want to make sure that the mask also, there we go, beautiful. All right, so we're gonna move this, make it a little bit smaller, move this up here. Receiving and paying is gonna go right about there. And our smart guides are helping us out throughout this process, right? Oops. Select these, move them in the center. Now we've got all these elements over here that we might need, right? We've got receiving, that line. Put this right in the center. Grab amount, which is all the way over here. There we go. And finally, our line. Perfect. All right, so we've essentially transformed this area into this payment section, right? So what we're gonna do now, we have our default state and we have our payment state. Now the big question many of you might be asking is, how do we actually transition between these two states? And thankfully, that process is incredibly simple. So from our default state, we're gonna hop into prototype mode right here at the top, boop. And we want to select the element inside of this component that we want to trigger the second state. In this case, it's the payment section, and it's a mask that you can see within our properties inspector. Excuse me. And instead of dragging this handle to another artboard, of course, if you, I'm losing my voice. Of course, if you are using multiple artboards, you can definitely drag it over, but we're just using component state, so you can just click on it. Click, and you've got this little blue wire. And what I'm gonna do is, over within the properties inspector, I'm going to choose payment. That's our destination that we just created. Definitely losing my voice. So I'm gonna choose that right there. It's gonna automatically default to Auto-Animate, which is exactly what we want. And we can go ahead and play around with the easing options. Let's try ease in and out and 0.6 seconds. All right, and now what we can do, we can also go back to our payment state. And maybe if we click on this area back here, it'll close it. Now, ideally, we'd probably have some sort of a close button, right? But let's go ahead and just click on this area back here. Click and go to our default state. What we can also do while we're here is maybe just drop the opacity of this just a little bit so you can kind of see some of the information in the background. 90% looks pretty good. All right, so the moment has come where we can actually preview this thing. And if all went well, and if all the layers were named the same, and if all the masks were named, and all the elements exist on both states, everything should animate really nicely, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and press the plus button at the top to launch the preview, and click. There we go. Did you see all the elements kind of fly in really nicely? And I can click on this area here to collapse it all, and everything is masked away nicely. Let's click one more time. Vroom. And close. Fancy. Now what we can do, because I did mention we probably need some sort of a close area. What we can do is inside of the payment section or payment state, we can put some sort of a close icon, right? So maybe it doesn't even have to be inside of the mask, right? Just do this. Pop that right about here, for example. And maybe the border will be this lovely purple. And then inside of here, we might want just a very simple close icon. Grab my pen tool. And of course, you can use like the X button if you want to just type one out, but I'm gonna run with this. There we go. Make it a little bit thicker. Change this to the purple as well. And now we have a close icon, right? There we go. I can even round up the caps a little bit. Bam. So now, here's something to take note of, right? I added this particular close icon only in the payment state. So if I were to go to the default state and then play this, that icon would just kind of appear, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that this particular icon, which I should group, I'm going to name close, I'm going to delete this, is added to the default state. So I'm going to hop in here. I can just move it if I wanted to, just move it right down here and just kind of move it off the artboard if I wanted to, right? Drag this down. And now in the payment state, move it on up. Just make a few small changes just like that. Let's do this one more time. Play and zoom. There we go. Of course, you can put it in the mask if you wanted to. A lot of different things you can do. But now from prototype mode, go to the payment section. I can delete this one here. I'm going to go to this close button and trigger the default state. So one last time before we wrap things up, press play. Here is our view. We can go ahead and scroll through the charts that we created yesterday, right? And Eric's saying this is the part that confuses me, adding things after the fact. Yeah, it is a little bit confusing. The thing you have to keep in mind is that if you add things after the fact, it's better to add them to the default state so they also add to all the other states. If you add it just to one of the child states, it's basically going to appear because it doesn't exist in the default. So Try to keep that in mind, and if possible, add everything to the default at the beginning before you add additional states. A little bit tricky, you'll definitely get the hang of it. So we can scroll through, we can click on these if we wanted to, and then we can tap on this payment button at the bottom to pull that out and then close it, right? And of course you can go crazy and play around with different easing options. Snap is a fun one, which kind of snaps right at the top. Kind of fun, right? And you can apply that to both states if you wanted to. The one thing I would not do is use bounce. Probably never use bounce on anything ever, right? Boing. That's just, no, don't do it. But I think ease in and out. What do you do in Outlook? What are you doing? Ease in and out looks pretty good. No Outlook. I do not want to update things. All right, so that is just, okay, Outlook's annoying me. That's gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna switch over here so Outlook could do whatever Outlook wants to do. It's very persistent, but that's gonna about do it. Thank you to Ariana and Aaron and Joe and Richard and Faisal. And I still didn't see what happened to Richard, but congratulations, Richard, for whatever happened. Joshua and everyone else tuning in. Stick around. Kyle T. Webster is coming up in just a few minutes with some fantastic illustration work. Especially if you have kids, pop them in front of the computer for about half an hour. They're definitely going to enjoy Kyle's show. And I'm going to be back tomorrow with day number 8 of this round of challenges. A big thank you to everyone who has tuned in, and I will see you all next time.